live. Today I'm going to talk about captions and titles and some cool stuff that you can do with those. And let me just pause for a second here while I wait for the stream to start. Why am I not seeing it? I'm just making sure that my software is working here. Okay. So we got that going. What I'm going to show you today is titles and captions and a lot of cool stuff you can do, particularly when you have multiple speakers, like on a multi-track podcast, multi-camera and multi-microphone that is. And so I'm going to start by pasting into my blank project here a 2-speaker podcast. Now I've already applied active speaker to this. And if I look at my timeline, make it a little bigger, this is a text layer here that I have above the video. And it's got the one speaker right here named Neil. And the way that I did that is, first of all, that speaker is labeled. So you can see the name right here, Neil Isaacs, as well as right here. And that happened automatically. I didn't type that in. That is because I did this option right here that says speaker. I can also make these captions. We're probably familiar with the captions layer. And what captions are is it reads the transcript. So right at this point in the script, it's going to copy whatever's in the transcript there and then display it here in this layer. And if I scrub through, you can see that that is changing. That is a caption. It's dynamic. If I go to, I got to select the text layer again and then do, well, freeform. Freeform is the default. And this is where you can just click in here and type anything you want. So I could just type in text and it's going to say text. It's static though. So whatever I type in there is going to remain in there. It's not going to change. It's going to stay the same. Okay, so if I click on that again, that was freeform. We saw captions. Speaker, again, will read off of the currently labeled speaker, and it'll remain that until the speaker changes. You can see that when I click into the next one, David, it changes to his name because it's labeled like that. So that's speaker. Composition name is going to take the name of the composition, exactly what it sounds like, which in this case is untitled. So it just says untitled right there. If I click on it again, I can do marker name, and I don't have markers on here, but I can add markers with the pound sign, the hashtag sign. So that's Shift-3 on a US keyboard. And I could say intro, something like that. And what markers do is, first of all, it's labeled there on the transcript, so I can see it. It's also labeled here on the scene thumbnails. So let me scroll down somewhere else and let me just do another one. Hashtag adds a marker, and I can say SBA. Scroll down a little bit more. And, oh, there is a marker in there already. This one, seller financing. So, okay, yeah, there's some markers that I had already made. And you can see what I can do is click on these, and it'll scroll me to those points in the video. But that's not all it does. Up here, these are kind of like a table of contents. So the first one, the one that says untitled, that of course is the name of this composition. We already talked about that. Below that is my first marker, which I just called intro. So I click on it, it scrolls me to that point. I click on SBA, it scrolls me to that point, and so on. So markers are internal like this, where you can navigate quickly using them. But that's not all they do. They also become timestamped chapters if you export this to YouTube. So if I go to publish and then I click on YouTube, I can see here it's right at 00. There is the intro, which, side note on that, when you're creating timestamps in YouTube for YouTube, it has to start exactly at 0. If it starts at 1 or anything after that, all the timestamps aren't going to work. It's just a YouTubeism, but very useful to know. And Dscript, if you use the AI feature to generate the timestamps, it'll automatically do that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But if it's not working, always check that you have a timestamp that starts at the first second of the video. So my next one was at 44 seconds. That was the one I added called SBA. And that, it automatically timestamps it at that point that it occurs in the video. And what these become, when I publish this to YouTube, these become the timestamps so that viewers can skip ahead. They become the chapters so that viewers can skip ahead in the video to those specific points in case most of it doesn't apply to them or they just want to watch a specific thing. They can do that. Always recommend adding timestamps to your YouTube videos. So markers, that's markers. And back to the title, how this applies to the titles is right here. So when I'm in this section of the video, the portion that occurs after this marker called intro, it's going to be labeled as such. If I go to the next one, or let's see where our next marker was. Well, I can scroll down here, I click on it, and you can see it's now changed to SBA. So that is the marker functionality with titles. The next one and the last one is timer. And this is going to just display the time into the video. So you can see as I scrub along, it went from 46 seconds up to a minute. So it's just ticking along like so. And there's a lot of different ways you can use this. I showed in a previous live stream a template I made for a workout challenge. And let me just bring that up actually, because so this was a workout challenge where there was 3 different elements to it. There's push-ups, squats, and burpees. And so that number right there, if I show this, whoops, let me delete that. That is the timer functionality. And so what I had to do was just display when I was in that portion of the workout. And then by the time it hit the next scene for the next workout, the timer for that one would start. And those were in their own scenes in order to display the time within that scene. Or you could have it run throughout the entire length of the project. And then in this case, it would go up to 11 minutes and 4 seconds. So those at a high level are our different options with titles. The most useful one, well, it's hard to say what the most useful one is. The one I use the most is captions. Captions are super useful, super common nowadays for social media content, and they're great. They're easy. Now, one word of caution with all of these is Dscript can be tricky for knowing what you are editing. So if I make a change right now, if you notice that this part of the layer is dark blue while the rest of it is a light blue, that's telling me that I have this scene 1 selected, but not the rest of that layer. So if I make a change here, it's gonna only apply to this scene. So if I make this like shorter, for example, and then I go into the next scene, it's long, it's back to where it was. I can make that bigger, and then I go to the next scene and it's back to where it was. So the way that you get around that is if I want them all to be this size, then I can go to these 3 dots next to where I was setting those different types of text layers. Actually, sorry, it'd be this one, this top one. And I'll say apply property to all scenes. And when I click that, it's gonna make that change that I made it shorter to every scene in this entire video. And you can do that with not just text layers, but any layer that spans multiple scenes. Be aware that whatever you're doing to it will only be in effect in that scene unless you apply properties to all scenes. And this setting is gonna get a little bit easier. If I go to, I've talked about this in some of my other videos, but if I go to my settings, there's this thing called labs and new timeline. And if I click on this, this is like a beta feature. This is a preview of the changes that are coming to Dscript in a few weeks. And so you can see it looks a lot different. But the thing I want to show you here is right here, it says editing in this scene or all scenes. And so I can also, inside of this new timeline, say all scenes, and then I can be sure that whatever changes I'm making are happening to all scenes. As it is, it's pretty difficult to know. So be aware of that. That is a common pitfall that I see. People are like, why are all my scenes different now? Okay, but for the sake of this interview, and the reason I have it in the bottom left is to make it a speaker scene. I want it to display the speaker, the active speaker. And I lost my, okay, that's fine. Some of these are formatted where they're both showing and some are just the active speaker. But I spread this out again. And so now notice if I go to a different scene, it's short and it's putting it on 2 lines, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is with the scene that I want to replicate, I'm going to go to these 3 dots and I'm going to say apply properties to all scenes. And then I skip forward. Oops, that isn't long enough still. Let me make it even longer. And I'm going to say, click on that layer and say apply property to all scenes. And there we go. And then now every time that the speaker changes, it shows the active speaker. So that guy is named Neil, that guy's named David, and it changes every time that the speaker changes. That is looking how I want. So if I go to title, the way to apply these in the first place, that's how to change them once you already got that text layer in there. And again, it's just called a text layer. It has a T. If you see it on the timeline, it's got a T and then it says text. And you can rename that as well. You can right here say, these are going to be my speaker labels. So I could just type in there speaker labels and then I'll know what that is. If I want to add captions, I can go back to this T, again, T for title layer, and I can say, these are defaults. They're all the exact same. They are the object type of title, and you can change whether it's a caption, speaker label, timer, all that stuff I already showed you in the settings once you apply it. But these are defaulted so that the title one is going to be a size 200 Roboto. I'll just show you what happens. So I click it, 200 medium weight, or 200 right there, Roboto, and it looks like that. So that's the default with that first one. If I go, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Click on the layer. And, I have it in edit mode. There we go. And then I go back to the title. I hit subtitle. And again, it's a text layer, but it's a little bit smaller. It's Roboto medium 100. So it's half the size as the title one. I'm going to delete that. Back to the title layer. Text, this is going to be the smallest one of all. Still Roboto. Font or weight is regular and the size is 50. So each time we're getting down to half the size. And my point in showing you this is it doesn't matter because I can change this. I could make this 200 and I could make it bold. I can make it bigger. And now it's essentially the same as the first one that I applied, but I just did it manually. The last one is captions. And so if I do captions, it defaults to the particular last settings that I used, which was this. But I can do anything I want with it. I can move it around the screen. I could change the text color, the font style, whatever. It's all changeable in the properties bar. And then so this layer, when you first add it, it defaults to fill the layer that you place it in. So in this case, or the scene that you place it in. So in this case, it's in scene 1. And if I want it to be in all the scenes, there's a few ways I can achieve that. I can drag it to make it fill the second scene. And now you can see that layer is there. I can also copy the layout of one scene. So I can say copy layout. I can go to the next scene, say paste layout. Oh, and you know what the problem with doing that is it pastes the entire layout. So it took the layer order, and in the one that I copied, the speaker David was the active speaker. He was the one showing. So by pasting it, I pasted that layout as well. So be aware of that. That wasn't a good demo, but that's what's going on there. But it also did do the captions, which was what I was going for. And then to correct that, I could simply just rearrange these so that Neil is on top, and then I could do the hide thing to hide David. And then we're good. It's still going to show, because I use the automatic speaker label option, it's still going to show David because he's the one speaking in that scene. But that's just a little nuance there. Okay, so that's pretty much it for applying it. And any of these can be made into templates. So you could save any of these layers. Well, first of all, you could click on a scene, an entire scene, and say save to template. But as with the copying layout and pasting layout, it's going to save more than just the title layers. It'll save the title layers, but it's also going to save the layer order, the active speaker. It's going to save all the properties that I've applied to that scene, which may or may not be what I want. So what I could do is I could save that template and then delete everything else, delete the script layer, delete the active speaker, and then just retain the captions, that particular look and feel of the captions that I want to lock in. And then that would be my template. And then that template I could just simply apply to any future project. So if there's a certain brand font that I use, brand color, that type of thing, then I could make a template for that. Especially useful for caption or shorts, as you can imagine, like TikToks and short videos, because captions are more widely used on those type of formats. So that is those settings. The next thing we can talk about is the opacity. We'll just go from top to bottom. Until I get questions, feel free to chime in the chat. Happy to answer questions. We don't have to just talk about titles. So opacity, by default, it's at 100%. I could hide this with this little eyeball right there. I could just click it and it toggles it off, that hides it. Or I can toggle this number anywhere from 0 to 100%. So I could say 80%. And that's actually a pretty good look, kind of a little more subtle, a little bit more blended in. I like that rather than being 100% opacity. Next is the layout. I've talked about this at length in other videos, but you can adjust the X and Y axis of where this caption appears. You can change the height and width, and these numbers you can also change by visually on this here by making things bigger or smaller. You can see that the numbers are changing, both the Y and the H, the height and width, as I'm dragging it up. This little chain link makes it so that when you change one, these are going to stay proportional. So if I hit, there's a couple things here that I can show you. So if you hold shift and drag from the corners, it's going to stay proportionate. If you don't hold shift, then you can freely move this around. You can make it fatter, taller, wider, whatever you want, like that. And if you change it from these numbers, I could type in something here like 650 that just made the width 650 pixels. And if the chain thing here is not clicked, if it's not toggled on, then I can move these independently. So changing the width will not change the height. If this is toggled on, then these numbers will stay proportionate. So if I change that to 175, it changed the width to 678 to keep the dimensions, the aspect ratio, the same. Below that is our rotation. So by default, it's at 0%, aka flat. And if I do 90 degrees, it turns 90 degrees. If I do 180, it's gonna be upside down, 270, and back to 0. So between 0 and 360 degrees, you can turn that however you want. And again, that's to do it from the layout property. If you want to do it from the interface here, from just dragging it around, you can put your mouse right here. And let me turn on my cursor thing. So if I get these little dots on the corner, and I put my mouse right there, just a little bit below it, I get those curved arrows. And if I click, I can rotate this. So I can put it at an angle. If that's something I want to do. And then I can drag it around. And as with the height and width, by dragging it around, you can see that the X and Y coordinates are changing as I drag it. Now, I can also type numbers in here. I can say 600, say 800, whatever. It's just gonna move it to that location. And let me just put this back to flat, like so, and shrink this box down a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna select my, my title one more time. And then below that are our text settings. So you can change the font. You can use any of Dscript's built-in fonts, as well as you can add your own if you go to this little cloud thing, this little up cloud thing. And you can search for a Google font. So for example, very, very popular one is Montserrat, which I already have added, but you can find it and then you just click on it to add it. Let me try Subrayada, Montserrat Subrayada, and it puts it into that search bar, and then I can say add to drive, and it'll take a second to load. And there we go. That font is now a selectable option. And if I click it, it looks like that. It's not bad, actually. And then you can change the weight. So this one, depending on the weight, the font that you add, you might have different options here. Some of the built-in ones, so for example, Cabin's also a very popular font. Oops, no, that one is probably one that I added. Let's see here. Yeah. Let's try Arial. Arial is obviously, oh, but that's black. Black is the thickest font. That's going to be your heaviest weight. Enter, okay. Hopefully this is, there we go. So enter with the weight, you have everything from thin, which is like super thin, extra light, light, regular, medium, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, black. And some of them will have italics, as we already saw. This one does not, but that is sometimes an option. Let me look at the Montserrat one. Does it say? No, it doesn't say underline. But anyways, that is changing the weight. And then below that, you have your alignment. This should look familiar from Google Docs, Microsoft Word, that type of thing. Pretty typical. Everyone's familiar with that. You can left align it, center align it, right align it. And that's referring to the alignment within these blue borders. So if I make it bigger, if I make it wider, it's going to hug that right side because I have it set to right align. If I go center, it's going to be the center of that box, left align, and so on. Next to that is your vertical alignment. So the first one is top align, where it puts it at the top of my box, middle, and bottom. And then below that is standard case and uppercase. And this is a font that is, or let me see, is this a strictly, some fonts are only uppercase, and I think this is one of them. Let me see if that's the case. Oh, and I can't modify it because it's not freeform. I was trying to click in there and change the words, but if you remember, it's currently on speaker, so I can't change it. I'd have to change it to freeform, and now I'll be able to type in there. And test. Okay, so that is a font that is only uppercase. So I can't type in undercase or camel case. So let's go back to speaker, and there it is. It's labeled again. And okay, so I still have that layer selected. And again, that was these bottom two under the text section. The next one would be your fill, and this refers to, of course, the fill of the text. When I just deleted it, there's no fill, so there's no words. If I go back to fill, it turns on this yellow font, but I could change that to anything I wanted. I could drag it around. I can go to black. I could change the color down here. I can make it red. These are presets down here. I could color match with this dropper here. So I could match like the color of his poster back there. And it uses a particular pixel in the image to match. I can change the opacity. So I already made the opacity of the whole thing 80, but This would be to just change the opacity of the text itself. So I'm gonna leave that. Then there's a border. That's a border around the text. And then you can set a thickness on it. It's currently at 10 pixels, but I could make it a little bit less extreme, knock it down to 7, 5. You can change the color of it. Right now it's black. I can make it like a white. So it looks like that. The background is gonna be that blue part that is behind everything, behind the words. And I could change that to whatever I want. I can make it purple, light blue, etc. Or I can get rid of it. I could have no background by just hitting that little minus sign. The next thing up is shadows. And there is a shadow applied, so that's what it looks like without it. That's with it. It just helps it pop a little bit, and especially when there's no background. So here's what it looks like with no background, no shadow. When I apply that shadow, it just makes it a little bit easier to see. And it might be a little bit of a strong shadow. So I'm gonna bump this down just a touch, like make it like 4. Yeah, it looks better. And then yeah, you can do it just like that. You can do animations. So this wouldn't really make much sense with a speaker label, but with other words, you could have the title layer be animated, so it could slide from off of your screen into your screen. It could slide from top to bottom. It could slide out of your screen, whatever you want it to do. You can animate it just like anything else. So that is that. Let's see, what else can I talk about? We haven't gotten any questions in the chat. If anyone has questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat so we can guide this a little bit more. Otherwise, let's see here. So I got a question about applying templates to multiple scenes. So if I applied a template, including the template I told you about, the title, like if I made this particular thing a title or a template, it would only apply to the scene that I apply it to. So in this case, I apply a template to scene 1, it's gonna apply to scene 1. So if I go to template, I can just demo this right now, like this one right here. It puts in all those layers, but they're only in scene 1 because that's where my mouse was when I applied it. I'm gonna undo that. So the way to get around that, to apply it to my entire video, is the copy layout and paste layout method that I showed you. Or you can, if it's just like one layer like this, the thing that I would recommend is just put your mouse on the boundary of it, the furthest right point, until you get this little bracket. The bracket will be open to the left, telling you that whatever change you're gonna make is going to affect the clip to the left of it. And then just simply click on it and drag it to the right. And then you can just drag that through your entire project. Now, if you have a really long project, that can be tedious. So what you can do is zoom out, and I'm zooming out with Command and my scroll wheel. I'm scrolling out while holding Command. On Mac, on Windows, it'll be Control. And then I just put my mouse on the boundary there, and I click it and I slide it to fill my entire project, like that. And then if I click anywhere into this project, I'll just spot check it. You can see that this layer, my caption layer, is everywhere in this project. Very good. Next, if we, the other way would be, like I said, right click, hit copy layout, and then paste layout into another scene. Now the problem with that is it's gonna paste all the layouts. So if I have Neil speaking in this scene and he's above the other speaker who's hidden, then it's gonna copy that same layout, even if he's not the active speaker. So you gotta be careful about doing that because it's a blanket, all layout type of copy and paste. Okay, so what else can I talk about with titles? I could show you more on the, let's add another title. I'm gonna add a big title. Again, doesn't matter. I can do freeform, captions, speaker. I'm gonna do timer. And And I'm going to move this around. And you could use this for like, if you're editing some sort of game show or some sort of like thing where it's useful to have a timer. I often use the example of the ESPN show where they each have a minute to speak, and it shows a topic on the bottom and then the progress bar with how much time they have. So you could create something like that in Dscript using this feature plus the progress bar right here. That'd be kind of fun. I could make a template for that. So anyways, this number 343 is the exact point that my playhead is at. Playhead, of course, is this blue vertical line. And if I scrub through, you can see that number changing. It's kind of like a countdown clock. Oh, but the problem is it's only in this scene 12. And so what happens is that layer is going to start right there, right at 201, and it's going to end when that scene ends. So what I can do is click on the end of it and drag it to the right. And now it's going to fill up more to the scenes that I've specified. Again, another word of caution, if I make any changes to this layer right now, if you're paying attention earlier, it's only going to affect this part in dark blue, even though it's attached to this layer that spans a lot of different scenes. It's not going to affect those other scenes unless I do apply properties to all scenes. And then apply properties to all scenes is going to take the layout of that particular scene, the layer in that scene, and apply it to the rest of the scenes in this video. So let me just demo that actually. So if I put it in Carnivore Rabbi, good to see you. Thanks for joining. So if I drag this to the top right, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm kind of just rambling on titles here. So if I drag it to the top right, then it's only selected this, or it's only going to happen in this scene. If I go to the next scene, now it's in the top left. So what I need to do is select it, 3 dots, and say apply properties to all scenes. And now if I check the other scenes, that number is now in the top right, just like the other ones. It won't extend it to fill literally every scene. It's just the scenes where it's been applied. So like that. And now I've gotten it to the end. I'm going to click on do the opposite and extend it to the start of this video. And yeah, like that. So now it goes from 0 all the way to the end of this video. And let's see. What else can we do? Any questions from the chat? Feel free to drop them in. Oh, so with the timer, we have a couple other settings. You have a count up or a count down. So count down, just like it sounds like, we'll do the opposite. So it'll start at 11:04, which is the length of this video. And then it'll count down. If I scrub through this, you see that number is decreasing until it gets to 0. And then if I do to end, so you can have this where that countdown will be the length of the entire video, which would be end, or I can do it where it's just the length between markers. So again, the markers were those, we made those with the hashtag sign. So if I put one in just scene 1, for example, let me zoom in on this. It's 30 seconds long, 31 seconds long. And so if I start, oh, sorry, the scene is 31 seconds long, but the marker goes to right here, SBA, which is at 44 seconds into this video. So from the start of my video to that first marker, the one that's SBA at 44 seconds, that's what this number is, 44 seconds. And then after it passes that SBA marker, it's going to start over with a count to the next marker, which is this one called seller financing at 1:35. So if I click anywhere into there, it's going to be a new number counting down. Okay, so that's it with the timer. let's do one more. I'll do a subtitle, and I'll move this around, and timer, marker. The marker, actually, that would be useful. So I mentioned the ESPN show where they talk about a certain topic for a minute. This would be useful for that, where you could have your video split up into different themes, different topics that you've made into markers, and then it would show that topic in this title frame, and then have your countdown over here. And then let's add in, just for fun, a progress bar. So if I put that, I'll put this behind it. Make it a little bigger. Do something like this. And then I'm not even able to, oh, okay. I have to change the start and the end are 1%, which is not what I want. I want it to go to 100%. And now it's going to change as I scrub along, like so. And I'm going to make it like, I'm going to change the opacity so I can see the words behind it. So I made it 50% opacity. And if I scrub through, I can still see that word behind it, as well as the countdown timer there. And then the viewer, it's kind of another cue for the viewer, like, okay, there's 45 seconds left on this topic. This is the intro. And then they go into the next topic. And if I wanted that to span the whole video, as before, I would just put my mouse on the end to get that bracket and just drag it all the way through. And zooming out, control, scroll out. Keep going until I can see the whole thing in one view. And then I'm just going to scroll or click on the end of it and drag it all the way through the end of the video. Like so. Do the same thing with the title. And there we go. So now we're going to have the topic written for each marker in this video, a countdown timer to tell us how long is left in each topic of this video, and the progress bar to just be yet one more visual cue of like how far into it we are into this topic. And you can see it as I scrub along, that progress bar is moving, and that those titles are obviously way too big. I'd have to make that a lot smaller. So if we select that title layer and then we change the size, so currently it's 100, and let's say I make it like 50, and I'm gonna make it bigger so it fills. Oh, that's not bad actually. Two rows fits nicely in there. And then that one's too big. Let's do. Oh, so I ran into this problem again where I made a change to the previous scene, but it didn't go into effect in this scene. So what do? We go to these three dots, say apply properties to all scenes, and now it's going to look a lot better. It's going to be how I intended it. That change is in effect across all scenes. Okay. So that's that. What else did I, oh yeah, I showed you the template for the countdown timer. What else could I do? I'm running out of ideas here. I need someone to ask a question in the chat. So let's add another text. Let's go to freeform. And do composition name. This is getting saturated with stuff now. It doesn't look good, but you're getting the idea here. And I can call this practice edit for titles. And then, whoops, which scene did that go into? It must be right here. I can see this layer. One thing that comes with a lot of experience is being able to quickly see the layers. Like, I think that's one big difference between a beginner and somebody who's been using the software for a long time, is to be able to look at the layer or just all the other visual cues. Like, and that's true of any skill. I mean, any professional or any person who's got a lot of experience with a tool or whatever the particular skill is, you're going to have a lot of different context clues to quickly identify things. So like right here on this layer, that's how I can immediately tell that this was where I placed it without trying to check each scene. And so what I can do, as before, I can drag this to fill my entire project. And I can do the same at the beginning, just drag it all the way to the start. And because I haven't made any changes to it, it's going to be consistent. I'm not going to have to worry about doing the apply to all scenes, but I could just for fun, click on that. And then that is my title name right there. And let me change that to the bold font and make it a little bit wider so it all fits in there. Just like so. I can move it to the right. And useful tip, you can use your arrows on your keyboard, like up, down, left, right, and nudge things around your screen without having to click and drag it. It's just a little bit more precise. The most precise, of course, is to change the numbers here, because you can change it down to the pixel. So I can move this to 641, 642, just very, very small changes. And then, yeah, that's the most granular way. The easiest way is through the interface, just clicking and dragging it around. Okay, so what else could we do to this? Let me change the color of this fill bar. I can make this like, it's currently like a gray. I could do green. Let's see how that looks. If I scrub through. Oh, and yet again, getting a lot of practice here. It's only green in the scene that I first made it. See how it's only blue right there, but it's light blue throughout the rest of this video. So for the 10th time, we'll come up to these three dots, say apply properties to all scenes. And now the whole thing is going to be green like that. All right, great. And then what else can we do here? Maybe I'll go into creating templates for these titles. So the way I could do that, if I wanted this whole thing to be a template, this is way too crazy, this is way too busy. We have every single type of title on here. We have the marker name, we have the progress bar, we have the countdown timer, we have the captions, the speaker, and the title, the composition title. So I think we've added every single one except freeform. Freeform is the only one we haven't added. So if I wanted to make this a template for some reason, I could click on it, right click on it, and I get this drop down. And I could say save to template. And then it's going to ask me to throw it in somewhere. I could say untitled template. Why not? Add to template. And it's going to open up in a new window, a template editing window. And here we go. And it defaults to trying to get me to save that. But I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And it's got two scenes because there's something that I put in here before. Yeah, it's just empty. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That's scene 2 there. Deleted. So if I play this. So a couple of things to point out here. We lost our title. The title is back to untitled. So this is also back to untitled. But if you drop this template into a video that has a title, it's going to take on that title. It's dynamic like that. And then also this layer, this portion of the video that I made this template out of is not going to get put into the template. When you apply it, it's not going to get put into the scene unless it's a blank scene. But if it's a scene that already has a script layer, it's only going to add these layers to that scene. That'll make more sense in a moment when I actually apply this. So we have our speaker label. Once again, that's just going to read off of the labeled speaker. And if it's not this guy, Neil, it's somebody else that when you add this to your own project, it's your name, it's your guest name, it's going to automatically take on that name. And then with captions, same thing. It's not going to read this transcript. It's going to read your transcript. Title, that one, okay, it's labeled title there, but it's this countdown, and I can label these here as well in the top right. So I could say countdown timer, just to keep things organized and clear on my timeline. So my countdown, of course, is the timer option, and it starts from, instead of a count up, it's a count down. So it's going to, in whatever scene that you apply it to, it's going to count down. Actually, sorry, the way I set it up was to the next marker. So if your video is set up in markers, it's going to be a countdown from the starting point until the next marker. And if you do to the end, it's going to be a countdown through for the entirety of that video project. So in this case, it's exactly a minute long. It's going to start at 60 and it's going to count down to 0. And then we have the progress bar. That's just that thing right there. Once again, it's going to expand to fill the scene that you place it in. Title doesn't even show. That one is a marker. So if I had markers, it would show the marker name. So let me insert a marker with hashtag, and let's call it intro, or let's call it template. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Oops. Template. There we go. And so it's just going off of the name of that marker. And then if I had another marker after that, like further down, then it would change to the name of the next marker. After that, our final one is this one in the bottom right, and that was our name of the project. So if I call this template demo, it changed it to template demo. And if you drop this into your own project, to reiterate for the 10th time, it's going to take on the name of the composition that you apply it to. So that is all of that. And then if I go to publish, I have to name it one more time. So it says untitled scene, but I could call it whatever I want. Call it titles template. And then that's what's going to show up when I go to apply this. So I can make it private, meaning only I can access it. I can do share with Drive, which means that me and my editors, if I have editors sharing it with me, can access it. Or I can do share publicly, which would generate a link that I could share with the entire internet. And then I can hit publish template, and it would be usable. Now, speaking on that point, let me go ahead and go into a little pitch for templates that you can download from me. So for those who don't know, I have this business called Dscript Mastery. Dscriptmastery.com, and I have a course, I have tutoring, and I have templates. And so if I go to the templates, first of all, you can you can download a bunch of free ones right here. So these are totally free. You just click on one of these, it opens up a Dscript link, and then you can see a preview of what these are. And I've labeled them very descriptively. So this hotkey one is a little thing that pops out of the bottom left. And then it's a title layer, just like we covered today, where you could then change that to a hotkey that you're typing if you're doing a software tutorial, some sort of walkthrough. That's what I do for my Dscript course and my Dscript videos. And then website pop-up is a little thing that pops into the screen, and it has my business's website. Arrow, I wish I could see these previews, but they're not loading. Oh, you can see them here. So it's kind of hard to see. Let me zoom in on those. Oops. That's too hard to see. Let's try another one. Netflix template or Netflix subtitles. So these are trying to replicate the style of subtitles used by Netflix. And so all you'd have to do is apply this template, and that title, that caption type of title, would be applied to your project. Then there are transitions, there are zoom packs, which are just like different levels of like 10% zoom, 20% zoom, things like that. So you don't have to create an animation every single time. There is a YouTube like and subscribe button. And these include, there's one for the bottom left, one for the bottom right. And these include a little like popping sound and a clicking sound. And they're kind of boring. They're not really like I don't know. They're not fancy. I've made custom ones for people where there's, something that fits their brand. And then there's title screens. These are super useful. These are very simple. They're just big titles, static titles, free-form titles, as we learned. And then you could just type in like the topic of your video, the topic of your podcast, and then have a theme that, like, if you're talking about water, you could use this boating one. If you're talking about sports, you could use that one. So, and actually that reminds me, let me do something. Go to templates. What is that one called? Titles. No, that wasn't it. Title B-roll, I think was it. So I made a couple new ones. I thought flying. Oh, maybe I didn't. There's still only 5 in there. Okay, no worries. So the point being, you can come to these pages and then you just hit copy to my templates. And do note, you have to be on the creator or pro plan of Dscript in order to use these. If you are on the free plan, you will not be able to add these and use these. Just one way that they try to get you to upgrade. And then, so those are all the free ones. If you want to order a custom one, you can do that right here. And I charge $25 per template that I make. And then the most common ones are YouTube or podcast intros and outros, text styles like we just covered in this entire video, where I could make, based on your particular brand, if you have like a certain font, certain color, then I can make those for you. And screen recording layouts, this could be something like having a little circle in the bottom, having a certain special background in your screen recording, like whatever you want, I can make those. And let's see what else. So that's it for templates. There's also templates masterclass. It's pretty short. It's like 40 minutes with some exercises along the way, some assigned projects, and then you can create your own templates, understand how to create those. The last thing I will tell you about is something new that I've recently made, is this 7 days Dscript Mastery course, and it's free. You sign up for it, and every single day, every 24 hours, you'll receive an email with an assignment. So it's a project to get you practicing different skills, and then those skills are explained, and you're going to build basically it could be like a YouTube intro video for your channel. It could be anything you want. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do the assigned one. The important thing is to practice the skills. And so you'll learn everything from the basics, how to start your first project, how to set the aspect ratio, how to import media into your project, how to basic audio editing. What does it mean to have good audio? Like, some people don't even know what that means. What does it mean to have good video, good transitions? How do you make your edits subtle? And then finally onto what I consider more advanced skills by day 5 or 6, I forget exactly which one, is setting up these templates and animations. And then the final day is publishing. Once you're done, you've got your project, you've been following along, you're building your project throughout the whole thing. Then how to publish that project to YouTube or your course platform or your podcast platform. And this whole thing, by the way, is for audio and video. So if you have audio only, don't worry, this will apply to you too. I know that I often focus on video. It's because video is more complex. So when I'm teaching students, like I have a boot camp as well, which is a month-long program that we meet every single day, and you get 8 hours of work per day just working on Dscript. In that program, the first week is just audio, because audio is like, if you think of audio as one-dimensional or two-dimensional, then video is three-dimensional. It's another layer of complexity, because you have the audio, you still have the audio, but then you got the visual component. So I often start with drills for audio-specific stuff. Okay, so that's it. Check out the website, dscriptmastery.com, and you can find all these different things. And I also do these live streams every Friday at least. Sometimes one week I did it every single day, Monday through Friday, because I enjoy doing it. And today we didn't get anyone to join, but that was a lesson that maybe 12 o'clock on a Monday isn't ideal for most people. So I'm experimenting with different times, see what works, see where I can get the most interest, and then try to get some interesting answers so that I can go to interesting places in these talks. Okay, I still got a few minutes left. We still got 5 minutes, so let's talk about, what else could we talk about? Highlights. Where did I see some highlights? Right here. So one way that I recommend, besides using the AI tool for finding good clips, which, by the way, you can go to Actions, Ask AI, and then you can say Find Good Clips, and it says five options for clips I can pull from this script. And when you hit enter, it's going to look through the entire script. It's going to find 5 options that you could turn into like YouTube Shorts or TikToks that either have a standalone point or a little story to it or something interesting. And so you can do select in script, and it automatically does this highlight on it. And then you could say duplicate, and you could duplicate that into a new composition. So I'm going to do duplicate all, the 4 that it found. And it says selection added to new composition, open. And here it is. These are the 4 parts that it found. And I could review these. I could see if I like these, if I do in fact want to make these into shorts. And if I do, what I would probably do, since there's 2 minutes here and a short is a minute at max on YouTube, I would find just a minute worth of stuff. So like here, like right there, that's one topic. They're talking about silver tsunami, which is the phenomenon of baby boomers in the United States selling their business. And so here's a distinct point, and I could just simply copy that, right click, copy. I can make a new composition. I could paste it in, Control V, and now that's a 37-second standalone thing. Now to get it into the right format for TikTok or YouTube Shorts, I can click on the aspect ratio, I can hit portrait, and we can't even see the video. Our video is missing right there for some reason. Let me look at that. There we go. So I had the wrong speaker pulled up. Let me just add a scene right here. So that layer change that I just made, I put this Neil as the active speaker so that we could see him before he was just black. If I go into the next scene, he's also going to be there, so I need to reposition these. Oops, I'm going to just click on track 1. Oh, and I think he's invisible. So I have to unhide him and then hide Neil. There we go. And then I'm going to hit position, fill canvas, and now he's taking up that whole thing. And I can go in, I could delete all these layers because I don't need these. And now those are all gone. And our Neil's gone again, so let me just fix that. Sometimes it's like whack-a-mole trying to get everything right. Click on that, hit fill canvas, and now he's full screen. So those are clips found by AI, and I turned that into a standalone short in a minute. Super easy. And there's AI tools that can do this as well. Other AI tools like, I don't know the names offhand, but there's some where it'll just create these for you using AI, and then you can publish it directly to your platform of choice. So, all right, we're at an hour. Thank you so much for joining. I'll be back with you very soon.